right. Just going to do an overview here. Existing bracket for the fender right here, this L shape, this angle right here. Same thing back there, that's an existing bracket right there with a hole in it. And I use those to put 1/4 inch, 10 inch wide at a 55-degree angle. Same thing here, 55 degrees. And I wish I'd gone a little bit shallower. It'd just make it driving over it a little bit easier, but if you're driving over with 37 or 40 inch tires or bigger, then it shouldn't be that should be inconsequential. So that's what these little things are for, just traction bars if it's wet or whatever. I probably don't need those, but put them on there anyway. Guys, traction bars, cool. All right, so welded this solid here. I just stitched it there on the inside, welded it solid on the outside here, solid here. This is all welded, closed. This inner piece is 1/8 by 8, and I wish I got 1/8 by 10 now. It would have just made it easier. Anyway, welded that and then ground it smooth. On the outside edge here, this lip, I started to angle it out, but I ended up just making it straight just for ease. And so this lip is 3/16 actually, 1 inch, and I just cut the angle there to match that, and then match that angle down here, same angle down here, and then welded that up and then ground it off smooth. Same with all this edge here. So this is quarter, 10 inches, 3/16, 1 inch, and 1/8 by 8 inches. And I wish I'd gone bigger here, and maybe even 3/16 on the inside, just to give it some more structural support. I think it's going to be strong enough, but if it crumples, I'm going to be ticked. This is 3/16 angle right here by 1.5 inches, and I just welded it down here, welded it up here, and so my 8 inches here came down to just below this. So it's a little annoying that I did that, and so I ended up using this 3/16 1 inch strap along here and having to stitch it in. Because 8 inches just wasn't long enough. I had a gap down here. So that's what this 1 inch piece of strap right here covers. Okay. And just kind of stitched it in here. I didn't weld the insides of these, but they are welded pretty well on the outside. So I think structurally they'll be pretty strong. When I put this 10 inch piece on here, 10 inch wide by 1/4 right here, it had a bow in it. So I ended up using the jack, the floor jack, and jacking it up on the inside here to make sure that this is nice and straight, and it's pretty straight. And then again on the outside, when I welded this piece in, I jacked it up just to make sure it's pretty straight. I do have a little bit of bow in this one, hopefully not too noticeable. Okay, good. Same thing over here. I just replicated the same dimensions, the same lengths, the same. These ended up being 18 inches tall at 55 degrees. Okay, these pieces right here. So same thing over here. Same thing, just welded that brace in. This one came out a little bit flatter. Pretty straight. Tiny bit of a bow. Okay, that one's pretty straight. Hopefully that's coming out in the camera. All right. So this white stuff that's on here, you can see it better on the inside. This is phosphoric acid, or the OSPHO brand of phosphoric acid. So they put some other stuff in there to make it work even better. So it not only neutralizes the rust on top, it attacks the steel. It actually permanently changes the surface of the steel so it'll never rust. And so it leaves this whenever it, so these were all rusty. These had been sitting out in the snow, and all these edges that I'd ground were all started to surface rust. They were all brown, all everywhere I had ground and where I had welded, where I ground off the mill scale. Yeah, So it was all surface rusted. So what happens is when it neutralizes it, it builds up this like crust on top, and you just have to hit it with I just hit it with a Scotch-Brite just to knock it off. And I don't try to get all the white stuff off. I used to, but I don't anymore. I just try to get it nice and smooth where it feels smooth to my fingers, and then I know that the paint will stick well, and the metal will never rust underneath it, and that's the cool part. So, and it's a primer also, so you just paint right over it. So I think I mentioned, if you watch one of my other videos on my tractor bucket build, I don't know how long I've used that, 20 something years, I guess. And I love the stuff. So it doesn't make a great showroom, you know, car shine finish. If you're painting a car, this is not something you want to use because there is some roughness to it and some irregularity. But for trailer fenders, I don't, you know, whatever. I don't care. Same thing with this tread plate. This was all rusting all around the edges where I'd cut it and where I'd welded it, and I just sprayed it. I didn't spray it with a phosphoric acid. I poured some in a bucket and dipped a rag in it and just wiped it with the rag, just enough to wet the surface, and it did a fantastic job. So you can still see what it, I got most of it off though. So I'll blow it off with the compressor with the air gun, and this little step I just put on here, it's probably going to be a shin buster, but I wanted to have a step, and I just welded it on the outside here and on the outside edge here. I didn't weld it on the inside actually, did I? I didn't, but that's enough for that. It's great because I don't have to lift my leg quite as high to get up. Okay, and there's another one right over here. So this one I ended up putting not right here because my license plate's going to go here. I tried to figure out how to make the license plate here, but it would stick out this way. I didn't want it sticking out over the trailer, so I'd run over it with the tires, and if it was here, I'd hit it with the tires anyway. So then I was trying to figure out how to put it on the back. How do I put it on the, do I put it on the ramps? What if I take the ramp off? Okay, all that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back in the original place right here. But so this step, this is just 3/16 tread plate or diamond plate, whatever you call it. And I just welded on a little angle right here. That's, what is that? That feels like 1/8. Welded it here, welded it here, welded it along this edge right here, and then welded it along here and this back side here. Probably, that was probably overkill. And then made a nice bead right here. Nice and solid, so that's all. The other issue I ran into was, well, let me finish with the steps first. And this is a step, I just sort of matched the inside edge of the frame like that. Just so it wasn't sticking out. I probably didn't have to make that cut, but, and then welded it here. I welded it on the top of the backside right here as well. And so that weld, this one's super strong. This is about 13 inches, 12 or 13 inches here. So, and again, treated with phosphoric acid, so it'll never rust, but I'll go ahead and paint it. And this is a nice step. I made it stick out 3 inches. I started to do like 2 or 2.5, and I ended up making it stick out 3. So from straight down from here, it sticks out 3 inches. And it'll probably be a shin buster as well. But it's so nice not having to try to, I'm not a tall guy, so I can't, you know, I don't have 8'9" legs like some of my buddies do, and it's nice to just be able to step on that, climb up. It's a little bit harder going down because there isn't much of a lip, but there's one over here too, but I just turn around, step there, okay. So that's kind of nice. Okay, I welded on another D-ring here. It's inside the tire, so the tire hits right here, but this will be enough that I can flip it up inside the tire there. A mistake I made was I bought some, so I got 4 steps, one there, one there, one there, one there. A mistake I made was I bought some, I was going to weld on some more stake pockets, and I bought a couple stake pockets from, I don't remember, Big R or one of the Tractor Supply, I can't remember, and they're only 1/8 thick, and these are 3/16. And so this is something you can put a chain on and tighten your chain binders down with, you know, or a strap or whatever, and really ratchet down. And those 1/8 ones are just, they're too flimsy and too thin. So I bought one to put here and there, and I was going to put 2 more along the back here just to have extra stake pockets, because you never have enough tie down points. So the 1/8 thick ones were too thin. So if you're doing this, just keep that in mind before you buy. Make sure to measure the ones you buy. And if you're welding them on, don't get the bolt-on kinds, because then you got to cut them off, and then they're a different depth here. I was going to bend some of my own. This is 3-inch tall, and I forgot what the dimensions are in here. I'm not sure I can get this flat of a bend though with my shop press. I might be able to, so I might try it. I might buy some 3-inch 3/16 and just try that. But I'm not sure I can get that tied to a radius right there with my press brake. Okay, last thing on these D-rings, the weld-on ones are great. I like them. These are a finish that are, I don't know what they are, and I don't even remember where I bought these, if I bought them locally or if I bought them at Harbor Freight or if I bought them on Amazon. I think these are from Harbor Freight, if I'm not mistaken, because these are the original ones I bought. And so these haven't rusted at all, obviously. These ones I bought off Amazon, though, and I even found them locally. They're, what does that say? £12,000. So I don't know what that means. The D-ring opens at that level, or it bends or breaks or what. Anyway, that's way more weight than I'll ever be using. So they weld on here and weld on here. Obviously, problem is they've all rusted, and they've all were looking like this. See that rust right there? So what I did was I just took that OSFO, that phosphoric acid, and I just wiped it with a rag, and just to make it wet. And you can see it's already neutralized the rust everywhere I got it. You can see where I didn't get the rust right there. And it's just a little bit of surface rust. It's not going to cause a structural problem within, 20 years or so probably. But this is a brand new one. I just went ahead and wiped it with the phosphoric acid so it would keep it from rusting. This is an old one. I probably need, it looks like I need to wipe it again. Well, that brown stuff right there is just, so that's what it looked like inside right there. If you can see that where my fingertip is, that's what the whole thing looked like. And so I wiped it down with phosphoric acid. If I paint it, that's fine, but the paint's going to get knocked off as it bangs around. And so it's better just to treat the metal, I think. And here's another one. This one might be able to use another coat. But you can see that rust is just wiping off, that brown stuff. So that metal's all treated. It's all neutralized. The rust is neutralized, but it's also etched the surface of the metal and changed the surface structure of the metal, of the steel, so that it shouldn't rust ever again. Okay. All right, good. So that's D-rings, that's steps, that's trailer, new fenders. And you can see where I'd started to weld on one of those 1/8 ones, and I realized how thin they were, those stake pockets. I was like, forget that. Okay, so that's all the projects for this time. Another mistake I made, and I knew better because I've done this before, where I've welded these on and the wiring is right inside that corner, and I melted the wiring. So I pulled all the wiring back from here, this whole thing, and I pulled it back from there to right there. And then so when I welded that one on, I melted the wire loom, and I got to check the wires right there because I think I might have melted the wires there too. At one spot I didn't get it. I didn't pull the wiring back to get it away from the heat from welding. So dumb mistake. So just keep my mistakes in mind, so you'll learn from them and won't make the same mistakes and have to redo I mean, it's not that big deal to splice in some wiring, but it's because I wasn't paying attention at that point, so I should have been. All right, hopefully these will work okay. And let's get them painted. I'm going to blow them off with a compressed gun. I might wipe them down with some MEK, or yeah, and then we'll get them painted. Okay. All right, so well, let me finish with the trailer. I got the painting done. Two mistakes I made was not getting my paint before away ahead of time like I should have, because so many stores are out of what you need. So I went to 3 different stores looking for my Rust-Oleum. It's a black enamel, comes in a can. You paint it on with a brush. I've used it for a lot of projects just like this. It goes on really thick, and it probably would have filled in these scratches from my abrasive wheel from my 9-inch grinder. You can see it did a really good job of knocking it and made it pretty flat, but the paint, look how, yeah. So it's, that's where I ground the metal off. And you can see all the grinder marks all along these edges everywhere. So I'm not super happy with that, but I'm okay with it because it is kind of a beater trailer. It hauls logs, it hauls wood, it hauls steel, it hauls a tractor, it hauls a Jeep, and whatever else my buddies throw on it or I throw on it. And chains get dropped on it, and so I'm not too worried. It's going to get scratched and dented, and so I'm not super worried. But you'd think after working in a body shop, I would be much more worried about that than I am, but it is, it is what it is. So I could have taken more time with maybe a higher grit wheel and got that knocked down. Okay. So, and you can even see it right here. So I'm not happy with that. The paint that I couldn't find, I ended up using spray, because I couldn't find that paint, I ended up using spray paint, and it didn't fill as well. And you can see how bad my technique is. I was trying to be careful, but it sagged. Of course, it sagged in here a bunch. This I'm less worried about because it's all getting knocked off with rocks anyway. So the steps came out pretty nice though, and I just put 2 coats of paint on it, and it's a gloss enamel, so it should hold up fairly well. And it is what it is. Whatever. Could have done better. Now back to the wiring. This is the wire I pulled out, and you can see how melted it got in places where it just totally melted through. And this side isn't that bad. It got crushed in a couple places, and I actually cut out the wire that was the worst part, but it did get hot in places too, and did this. I don't know if that's going to come out in the camera, where the wire was so hot it just melted through the sheathing. Okay, these lights are supposed to be able to put through the hole like that. I've got a couple of irregularities there from the original manufacturer, so we're going to get that out with the rotary rasp. And this is for metal. This is, my buddy Steve turns me on to all the cool tools I have, so this is another one he told me about, and I've had this for a couple years, maybe 3 years now, and a few little pieces of the teeth are knocked off it, but it still works pretty good. That piece is gone. There's a little nub right there. It's gone. Okay, see if it's through now. Okay, perfect. Yep. Work. You want to just put the light through first, and then just work the grommet through. The grommet fits over the light. It doesn't fit over this outer end very easily at all. So try not to try to avoid that if you can. So, and that's what it ends up like. I'm trying to match the groove. Yeah, so that's the end. This light actually sticks out farther than some of the others. This doesn't come all the way flush to the end, so there, whatever that's worth. So then you work the grommet in. It's in, and then we'll work the light in. Okay, there we go. Okay, nice snug fit, 3/4 inch hole, and back it comes. We're gonna put some wire loom over this, route this up behind here, probably zip tie it there somehow if we can, and then get these wires up and away out of rocks that might be bouncing up. And it's probably a good idea to have a couple of these laying around if you do have a trailer with these on here. If rocks come bouncing off from your tow vehicle and hit this, they're kind of susceptible just because of their location. Okay. Okay, so that's what you get when you short to ground, and the resistance becomes so high and it makes so much heat in the wire that it melts stuff. So everything's replaced now. Got all new wire loom, got all new soldered joints. The only thing I haven't finished is I've just capped this wire. This wire will go to the license plate illumination light right there. Okay. So I first noticed this when I was testing this, and I hooked up my battery to the backup lights, and I was walking around checking the lights, and like 2 or 3 of them were working and most of them weren't. And so I was like, what's going on? And I came back and went to disconnect this wire was like almost ready to melt. It was so hot. There was so much current going through it. It was just crazy. So that was my first sign that there was a short to ground. And let's just test this out now. Those aren't touching, right? Okay, good. Okay. Oh, we have marker lights. Oh, and look, our new one's working. All right. It does stick out a little farther than the others, but that's okay. And that one's working. That one's working. And everything's working back here, looks like. That's good. Yes. Why is that one intermittently working? Okay, so it could be the wiring up here if I wiggle that. No, but if I wiggle it down here, it seems to... Maybe I'll just replace that bulb. I mean that light, since I have one. Okay, that one's working. Just got to get that one back in. And that one's working. Excellent. Now this should not be hot. And it's not. Okay, good. Okay, how do you remember what your color wires are? Obviously in here they're all different colors. Basic trailer wiring that has green and brown and yellow. Brown has a B as in butt. In other words, tail lights. Those will be your backlights. Not your backup lights, but your tail lights. That's B for brown, B for butt, B for back. That's just how I look at it. And then green has an R in it for right, L. There's an L in yellow for left. So I don't know if they made it that way, but that's just how it works out. So it does help if you're troubleshooting your trailer system. Okay, so we're at the front of the trailer here. I've been messing with the wiring. I melted some of the wiring. Of course, some of the wiring overheated from that bolt that got tightened on the wire. And so I'm just going to do a quick check. I've checked all the lights already. That's pretty straightforward, but I'm going to check the brakes. One thing I just wanted to mention that I started doing, because I used to write what was what on here with a Sharpie, but it would always wear off. So I ended up using this little Harbor Freight engraver. And this, I don't remember how much this was. It wasn't expensive at all. And so I just engraved the marks over my old Sharpie marks. And so hopefully that'll be more easily readable. There's the ground. I probably should just put negative for that, but that's the right and that's the left. And yeah, so that helps mark it. So we're just going to do a quick trailer brake check. So we've got the ground to there and red to the trailer brakes. And so we're not going to put this on for very long, just a few seconds here, but I'm going to make sure this energizes the trailer brakes. Okay, yep, and that locks up. And that one locks up. And that one locks up. And that one locks up. So all 4 trailer brakes are working. That wiring is all intact. We don't want to leave these wires on very long here. We'll take this off right away. Click, you heard them disengage. Well, since I put the fenders on, I've hauled a 20-foot culvert with it and a bunch of, just nothing heavy, but just kind of bigger stuff. This was my buddy's advice, instead of putting like expanded metal across here for traction, because that'll just fill with dirt and ice, and I guess that's not a good idea, he said. So he said put skateboard tape on. So this is traction step tape, I guess, or whatever you call it. This is 4-inch and then 4-inch. I could have got some 2-inch and made it complete, but it does give it a little edge also to kind of bite onto, so that's good. I kind of like that little edge there. And yeah, and it also doubles as a workbench. So yeah, it's strong enough to do that. I'm loving the steps. Getting on and off this the other day when we were tying all this stuff down was so nice. So much easier on my knees. Yep. Okay, the next project is going to be reworking those. So the holes here don't have as much play. This was before I had a mag drill and ended up wallowing these holes out here with a, yeah, they're just not pretty. Okay.